Panasonic TVs are back, baby. Kind of hard to explain just how excited I am right now. About 10 years ago, when Panasonic said that it was no longer going to be selling TVs in the US, I was bummed, but I did not say goodbye. I said, see you later, because I was convinced that Panasonic would be coming back. What I didn't know, however, was that it was going to end up taking them 10 years to come back. But yeah, Panasonic TVs, at least 2 of them, are back in the North American market for now. There is no guarantee that they're gonna stay that way, not unless people start buying them in significant quantities. That's kind of where we're going with this video. But like, how did we get to this point? What happened to Panasonic? Why did they have to leave, and why did they decide to come back? That's really what this video is going to be about. I just happen to be unboxing a Panasonic TV while I'm doing it on the road to reviewing this TV. This would be the W95A Mini LED TV. Very excited to check this one out. I know a lot of you guys wanted me to start with the OLED. I'm sorry, this one just made more sense. So we're gonna start with this one. But like I said, this video is really about what happened to Panasonic and what might be happening going forward. So let's get on with it. I'm gonna disappear here for a second. So back when I sold TVs, and to be clear, I worked as a tech support and customer sales representative for an Amazon competitor back in the day, but I did sell TVs. And back when I sold TVs, it was Panasonic, Sony, Toshiba, and maybe to a lesser extent, JVC. They made the best tube TVs that you could buy. Then cut to more recently, about 13 or 14 years ago when I started reviewing televisions, Panasonic made the best plasma TVs that you could buy. Although Samsung did come in at the very end there with a very competitive plasma TV itself, which is actually highly relevant because Samsung and LG really blasted into the US market and kind of put the hurt on the Japanese brands. Sony, Panasonic, Toshiba all saw their sales go down. Not to mention the fact that there was that really hardcore tsunami. What is going on here? Oh, it's just foam. Not to mention there was that really hardcore tsunami that hit in 2011, which kind of upended Japan's economy in general. And I believe that Panasonic in particular was hit hard. One of their factories, I think, was involved. Anyway, Toshiba, at least as we knew them, died. JVC disappeared. Sony decided to change its approach to doing almost entirely premium televisions, at least in the US market. And Panasonic said, well, guys, sorry, but we're gonna peace out. For those of us in the TV reviewing business, and I suspect for retailers, that was a little bit of a shock. We kind of wondered if Panasonic was going to survive. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know, what Panasonic's strategy was there, but I can tell you that Panasonic continued to produce televisions and ship them to Europe, in addition to supplying them, in their home country of Japan, and I'm assuming many other places. But North America was out. And since they were still shipping TVs to the UK and Europe, oh, don't want to lose that, I had to look on as reviewers like Vincent T.O. reviewed amazing Panasonic televisions, and I had to answer to viewers like you about why I didn't review Panasonic televisions. Cut to today, Panasonic is back. Now, why are they back? Well, perhaps they sense that now is a good time to jump back into the US market. I mean, I suppose that they're seeing Sony have some degree of success. That might have something to do with it. You know what else might have something to do with it? Panasonic's partnership with Amazon. Now look, it's just pure speculation on my part, but the fact that Panasonic is partnered with Amazon insofar as these TVs have Fire TV OS in them, Amazon is actually a retailer for these televisions as well. Now, it's worth noting that it's not like Panasonic is shipping its entire TV lineup to North America. It's just these 2 flagship models, the W95A for the Mini LED, that's not working out, let's try that again, and the Z95A OLED television. You know, that last one went right in. So why am I so excited about Panasonic's return to the US? Well, for one thing, I feel like Sony could use a little bit of competition. But also, I'm all about consumers having choice, right? And Panasonic offers another super premium choice in the US, specifically for folks who really consider themselves videophiles, for folks who want to see the creator's intent, for folks who really care about their movies looking as good as they can in their homes. I gotta do a little bit of cleanup before we get this thing up and running, but I can't help but notice as I'm staring down at the input bay that it has two 4K 144 Hertz or HDMI 2.1 ports, not four. Not surprised by that. I imagine this also uses a Pantonic 1000 SoC. But anyway, back to why Panasonic TVs have been and continue to be so revered. It's their processing. If anybody was challenging Sony in terms of image quality and image accuracy, it was always Panasonic. That has been the case for a really long time. We just haven't gotten to enjoy any of that over the last 10 years, but now we get to once again. Now, I think the trick to Panasonic selling a lot of TVs in the US, honestly, is gonna be getting the word out. Like, TV enthusiasts kind of know that Panasonic TVs can be excellent, but the general public, especially, you know, the younger generation who is just now getting into buying their first, you know, high quality, high-end TV, they may not remember a time when Panasonic was one of the kings of TV in the United States or North America at large. And so getting the word out is kind of a big part of this whole thing. Now, hopefully this TV performs as well as I expect it to. If it does, you know, I'll have lots of great things to say about it, and the word, you know, I'll be doing my part to get the word out about these televisions, but ultimately it's going to be up to Panasonic to reach the public and keep itself in business in the United States. This W95A 65-incher is going for right now, and it looks like it's going for about $1,700 on Amazon. Let's do some comparison. Right, so the Sony 65-inch Bravia 7, which I just got done reviewing, and to which I will be comparing this television, is $1,600. So very much in the ballpark, right? Let's take that a step further. 65-inch Bravia 9. Holy shit. The Sony Bravia 9, the highly vaunted Sony Bravia 9 with the next-gen mini LED backlight tech that we have talked about so much on this channel, 65-inch model is $3,000. $1,300 more expensive than this TV at the time that we do this recording. So, if this TV can somehow bridge the gap between the Bravia 7 and the Bravia 9 at its price point, then I think Panasonic really has a solid case for this particular TV in the US. Right now, granted, we have a lot of studio lights on in here, but I'm not seeing anti-glare that is significantly better than the Sony Bravia 7, which is a bummer because that was one of my few criticisms of the Sony Bravia 7. And I kind of hoped that the anti-glare or anti-reflection treatment on this TV might be a little bit better than the Bravia 7. We're gonna put these side by side, so we'll soon know for sure if one is better than the other. But just off of you know, a quick glance right now, gotta say, looks about the same to me. And since this thing was definitely used before, let's hope that the batteries are still in the remote, and they are. Speaking of batteries, Panasonic is huge. Panasonic is an absolutely massive corporation. They do a lot in power, smart cities. A lot of electric vehicles use lithium-ion cells that are made by Panasonic. Panasonic, you know, they're big into cameras. They're big into all kinds of tech. They're just big. So the success of Panasonic as a corporation definitely does not rely on the success of the sales of this TV in the US. Let's take a look at the remote real quick, because once I plug this thing in and turn it on, I'm not going to be showing this to you. So there is the remote. I'm assuming it is not backlit. It is an Amazon Fire TV remote control, as you can see. And I think it's fine. Looks like, well, this is probably for voice recognition. I am curious if it has a little remote finder feature, but you know, that's stuff that we'll talk about in the review when I actually do a full review of this TV. Anyway, there's your remote. Pretty sure it's not backlit. Wish that it was. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and break my own advice and try and hoist this thing up by myself, which is doable. It's not that heavy. Feels built well enough, I think. Time will tell. Oh yeah, one other thing. This thing does not have a super high-end built-in audio system like I believe the OLED does. Seem to remember something about that. But it does have a nice bass transducer with a good amount of excursion on the back. And so, yeah, you know, maybe it'll sound okay. Yeah, all right. So we're plugged in. I think we should power this guy on. Oh yeah, the remote is installing updates. What a world we live in when your remote control needs to update. You know, it's been a while since I messed around with a Fire TV OS in a TV. And so, you know, this is interesting. Can't go home until we connect to the internet. Interesting. Hold on a second. So we can access our inputs and we can access settings. But yeah, obviously we're not gonna get very far unless we connect to the internet. So let's do that now. Yo, I don't have a problem with like the fact that the TV has to update. I understand that's part of the deal now, but give me a status bar, for crying out loud. Like right now, all I know is that it's supposedly updating and then it might take several minutes. But is it updating though? Like, how would you know if it was frozen or not? Amazon, please bake a status bar into Fire TV OS so that people know that this will eventually come to an end.
One eternity later.
Oh my gosh, this seems like it's taking forever, which I mean, it really does go to like have a status bar because I don't know if it's actually taking longer than say Google TV does. It just seems that way because I have absolutely no idea when this is going to end. Fire TV. You know what's not fire? Waiting this long. I've just pressed the power button. I may have doomed us to starting this whole process over again, but like, I can't, nope, it's still going. All right, well, we'll just wait, right? Oh, device is not connected to a network. That's funny because you were connected to a network to download your update. All right. Pardon me while I sign in to my Amazon account. That's right, I kind of forgot that, you know, like I said, it's been a while since I messed around with Fire TV, so I know that there's a lot of new stuff that I haven't gotten to experience yet, like the screensavers and things of that nature. So kind of interested to see what it's gonna be like. Which popular services do you want? Yeah, we'll do Peacock, we'll do Tubi, Disney Plus, Hulu. Don't need any of those. Got it. We can do profiles. We can upload pictures, do all kinds of fun stuff. So for anybody who doesn't follow my TV reviews, my first order of business is to get the picture settings straight, at least on the home screen, and then probably have to go through and do this on all the apps too. Gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of putting what appears to be the picture settings like, well, buried. There we go. Now we're getting there. Okay, I like this. So we can set picture settings for HDMI 1 through 4, the antenna input, and apps and video. That's great. So it looks like we'll be able to do some kind of global picture settings. Looks like it comes in normal auto AI. That'll be interesting to check out. Cinema filmmaker mode. Good to see that. Been a while since I messed around with a Panasonic. I'm assuming that some of this is custom to Panasonic's implementation of Fire TV OS. So I am curious to check out the differences between filmmaker mode and true cinema and professional. Because I know it's a known quantity, I'm gonna go ahead and just start with filmmaker mode. Instantly warms up the color temperature, but I know that I'm probably gonna need to bump up the brightness. At least for recording this video. Auto brightness is on. I'm turning that off. You can see it dimmed down because it knew, it knew that auto white balance is also on. I'm going to turn that off. It knew how bright it was in here, and so it was juicing up the brightness on its own. Yep, it's an SDR for now. HDR settings. Wow, there's some really interesting settings here. Like you can do different kinds of EOTF. That's kind of a super nerd thing. So EOTF stands for electro-optical transfer function, and it kind of defines how the TV follows an HDR tone curve. It looks like you have auto, which is probably what most people want and will use, but you can choose traditional gamma, HLG, PQ. Again, this is all super nerd stuff, so I should probably stop before I lose anybody. Well, we need to knock down the studio lights in here because this is really unfair, but I gotta say the screen anti-glare treatment is very much like the Bravia 7. So, I mean, they're kind of level in that regard. Way too bright in here to do like an honest backlight evaluation, but right off the bat, I mean, I'm way off angle. Blooming is pretty well controlled. Like off angle, you can almost always see the blooming and the halo. And yeah, I'm not seeing a ton. That's a really great start. I will say that, like, I mean, granted, we're in filmmaker mode, so everything should be pretty accurate, but like the color is looking really good right now. That looks as natural as I've ever seen it. So guys, thank you for joining this little video about, you know, the history of Panasonic and why it's notable that they are back. So far, really good with the W95A. I'm really looking forward to reviewing this TV and the OLED as well, but we're off to a pretty rockin' start here. And I'm especially excited that I still have the Bravia 7 around to put against this TV. They're within $100 of each other. So I really think it's gonna be a fair comparison, and we'll talk about it in the full review. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, would you let me know down in the comments? And while you're down there, let me know what you want covered in the review. I feel like I have a pretty good idea, but I'm always open to suggestions. Slap a like on this video. If you know somebody else that might want to see it, share it with them. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. Anyway, that's the conclusion. Anyway, thank